This is with Harry Truman. This is with Richard Nixon.
James Barron of Newton is a journalist, attorney, and now author. How he came to write his first book, The Greek Connection, is itself a story, beginning with an ambulance ride to Newton Wellesley Hospital more than a decade ago.
As they were nurses and doctors trying to stabilize my symptoms, I tried to find a place of calm. I took myself back to Greece. In 1966, summertime on the island of Mykonos, listening to the sound of the donkeys coming down the hillside with the bells and feeling the warm, glorious Greek sun on my back.
Barron later recalled that same summer was when he was introduced to the complex world of Greek politics.
And I was especially fascinated by the story of this Tom Pappas, character who was later named on the Watergate tapes as the Greek-bearing gifts, and in 1968 was the bagman for illegal funds going from the Greek CIA to the Nixon campaign.
Pappas had a Boston connection, a Greek immigrant who with his brother grew the family's North End grocery business into a multinational enterprise. Barron intended to write about Pappas until he met investigative journalist Seymour Hersh.
Pappas, you really should be focusing on the person who tried to blow the whistle on Pappas, the journalist Elias Demetropoulos. He's still alive and in Washington. I flew down to Washington. I met with Elias and realized that the bombshell from 1968 was a small part of a rather dramatic life. This is his medal that he received.
I mean, you're really the keeper of his flame at this point.
Yeah, CIA stuff, we're not going there with
Barron devoted 10 exhaustive years researching, traveling, and cultivating his relationship with this complex, intriguing figure. A story that begins quite simply. He was a journalist before he was a journalist.
He was a fellow who grew up in Athens. Elias, in World War II, decided he was going to join the resistance. He was 12 years old at the time, and he became involved in intelligence gathering and in sabotage. He got caught by the Nazis. He was tortured. He was in prison and sentenced to death.
Ultimately, Elias does become a journalist in his homeland. But in 1967, when the military dictatorship takes over,
he felt this was his time to be involved in the resistance. And the best way to do it was not to be in Greece under the dictatorship, but to get to Washington because of American support for the junta.
He becomes more than a journalist when he moves to Washington. He's sort of a power broker. He's a celebrity in certain ways. How does that happen?
He had different worlds, and so he had friends for 40 years who never knew about his social life. There are others in his business world who never knew about some of the political activities. He kept these all discreet.
How does he fit into Watergate?
The heart of what Elias discovered was that in 1968, there was an illegal transfer of funds from the Greek CIA on behalf of the junta to the Nixon-Agnew campaign, thinking that a Nixon presidency would be more sympathetic to the dictatorship than Humphrey.
News of the transfer, orchestrated by Pappas, was not revealed at the time and would be central to Watergate.
That election was the second closest election in the 20th century. It was decided by less than 1% of the vote. Just imagine our history if you had no President Nixon and no Watergate.
Barron's biography of Elias Demetropoulos is receiving praise from influential authors such as Doris Kearns Goodwin.
It's very gratifying. It's also gratifying to be able to return to my wife, who was a book widow for 10 years.
Marjorie Aarons Barron, herself a journalist, is the former editorial director at WCVB.
This is his briefcase from the photo.
In the end, author and subject shared a relationship that resulted in a story that might otherwise not be told.
Whistleblowers today put themselves, their careers, their lives at risk. That's what Elias did. It is something that is dangerous, but can change the course of history.
And that story is in this book.
James Barron tells us it took a long time to build his relationship with Elias and to gain his trust. Barron made it very clear he did not intend to write an as told to book. Rather, it would be a story based on information he would gather and research himself. Barron's 10-year odyssey ends with Elias telling him he was a little brother that he never had. Up next, tracking the California condor.